Good morning to you. Good morning. Good afternoon. If you're in Asia, good evening. And thank you for tuning in today to our exchange reseller meeting. Our meeting essentially is going to be just an interview today, a very significant interview, an interview with Michael Kirman from Steve's Music Store. Steve's Music Store, the iconic music store out of Canada. This store expanded to up to 5 locations. I used to work there. They're like family to me, and I've known them for my entire professional life. And they've served millions of Canadian musicians over the years. So we have Michael here to talk about that. Before we jump into the interview, I just want to mention a couple of things, just sort of ongoing issues that we're dealing with the exchange system. Number one is security. We're taking a lot of measures to frustrate pirates and people with ill will who are defrauding our retailers, our retail partners with fraudulent purchases, multiple purchases. We are asking again everybody to recheck, relook, especially for those of you integrated. And for those of you who could, sell a code in your sleep at 3 a.m., you really need to put some security measures, some common sense security measures on your service. They, don't prevent every break-in or every fraud, but they will eliminate 95% of this fraud. And that's really good if it doesn't really cost you that much. And some of these are just common sense things. Number one, don't allow guest purchases. We've been saying this for many years. Everyone that buys from your website should have to register, create an account. Number two, do not allow multiple purchases of the same licenses. Think of yourself like the Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Motor Vehicles. They will not allow you to go into there and ask for 5 passports, 5 driver's licenses. No, they give you 1 license. That's good enough. You can use that to drive anywhere. And the same with software. You get 1 license and it's good enough. You could use it for most cases, the perpetual license for the rest of your life. You don't need 5. So a couple of these common sense things you could do, it will eliminate and frustrate the pirates and they'll just move on. Okay, this is not a problem that's gone away. We saw a huge spike in April, continued in May. It dissipated a little bit in June, but it's still ongoing. So protect yourself, protect your business, and prevent loss of profits because who wants the hassle of having to deal with trying to return codes that are already registered and so on. Very, very simple steps you could take to prevent these fraudsters from succeeded in defrauding you. Okay, so we will be sending out more and more emails. Our staff are engaging with the bigger resellers. Many of the resellers are investing heavily in protecting their businesses from fraud, and we commend those efforts. So once again, this is top of mind right now. We ourselves are putting things in place, as we mentioned in previous meetings, to again highlight and suppress surge processing and surge purchases on the system. Okay. All right. So let's just jump in. I want to introduce our special guest. He's Michael Kirman of Steve's Music Store. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning, Ray. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you doing?
I'm not surprisingly okay.
Nothing surprising about that. You always been kind of a jolly guy. So give us an update on what's happening with Steve's. What's the current state? What's the latest?
Well, the current state, I'll jump back a little bit. Back in February, we started restructuring, and we closed down 4 of our 5 stores. Just last month, unfortunately, I made the decision with the family and some of our employees to close down the last retail location, so we could better prepare our proposal for our creditors and stuff like that. And the unfortunate location just wasn't living up to what we were expecting when we were going through all this. So restructuring is still going on, but we don't know where it's going to lead to.
Mm. So when you say restructuring, does that mean that you continue to offer products and services to
Not
end users right now?
not at the moment. Right now, we've done a pause on all sales so that we could basically it's called a proposal, so we could clear up and make good with our creditors, landlords, and employees, whatever, so that we could then could hopefully keep the intellectual property of the business, the goodwill of the business, and see what happens down the road in the future. No decisions have been made about that.
Okay. So let's go back as I was mentioned to everyone on this call. I worked at Steve's for I don't know many years. I came up through the Steve's Toronto store. I worked under Jeff Cezanne, who was one of the best salesmen I ever met in my life. I think I learned a lot from Jeff. He's a mentor to me till today. I worked obviously under Michael Kirman, who is sorry, Bill Kirman, who is your uncle,
That's
who is probably the smartest purchaser I ever met, and one of the most unique individuals I've ever met, and very intelligent man. And these people I consider like family. I remember music marketing when we celebrated 25 years. Jeff Cezanne was actually the guy that made the first speech because we learned so much from him. I learned so much from him, and Steve's always been a good supporter. When we first started Steinberg back in 1991, Steve's was our biggest customer for many years. So there's a lot of there's a lot of history and love between myself and Steve's Music Store. So talk to me about the beginnings and your dad. I believe the store was started before you were born, Michael.
yes, it did. I often consider this store. I talk to people as my big brother. My father started it in May '65. He was 18 years old. And for anyone who's ever been in a Montreal store, the original store on St. Urban, St. Antoine Street, corner of St. Urban, which was formerly those days known as Craig, it was just a front counter. And the store over the years expanded to amass pretty much the entire city block. Um, but it went through a lot of stages. I mean, early '65, you know, British invasion into around the world, the growth, I think, of explosion of rock and roll and live music. Um, in the late '70s, mid '70s, Jeff, who started working for us in 1967 in Montreal, had already moved to Toronto and was spoken to Steve and um, told him about some great opportunities and the cultural change was happening a little bit in Canada at the time. So we took the chance and opened the Toronto store in I guess 1977. Followed not far after in 1980 with our Ottawa location. And for many decades, those three stores basically, I think, were probably some of the strongest stores in North America. We had some great management with Jeff, his brother Sheldon, and Dave as the Montreal team in the '80s forward, and Peter Andrechow, who was our original manager in Ottawa. Those are probably four of the best general managers I would say in the industry. And then you know,
I can concur. I mean, like, and evidence of that was that Jeff Cezanne, the manager of the Steve's Toronto location, was headhunted out of there by Guitar Center to run their Hollywood store. That's the kind of reputation that Steve's had. Um, your dad, he was not a musician though. Why do you think why did he get in a music store? He couldn't play guitar.
no, I mean, I think growing up when he did, I mean, he had mandatory, was either violin or piano lessons, which, I think he took very lightly. But I think at 18, he grew up and give a little history of the street. Craig Street was kind of like 48th in New York was pawn shop row. And my grandfather actually had a pawn shop right down the street. And my dad started off before he opened the store. he got his chops in salesmanship, being that guy doing door to door, literally a door to door salesman as the opener. He would get his foot in, and if someone's interested, then the closer will come in and do the sale. He worked a little bit in construction. He actually had a restaurant for a while. He was doing breakfasts and lunches and all this stuff. And I think at 18, he decided he wanted to try and get into general retail. He had a passion, I think, at 18, as most kids do, I guess, in those days, music. So he brought in instruments. There's demand for instruments. He had some other, canned trunks and stuff like that. And the big change for him was, I think, 2 months into opening the store, he got robbed. And, the records were all stolen. And probably only the first 2 months of our business we ever sold records. After that, we never sold records again. And again, it was the 65, it was British invasion, Beatlemania. So my father, after work, between I think drag racing and clubbing, meet up with friends and other musicians and stuff like that. Everyone's around the same age, and he'll literally open his trunk and be selling out of the trunk of his car. Famous stories of closing a store and putting massive 4x12 cabs in the back of his hatchback fastback Barracuda and driving to some club to make a delivery to someone. So that's you start off with that passion, and of course not being a real musician in that sense. He took on the attitude of which was not of the era. Guitars were not behind showcases and glass. It was no, they're out there. Oh, you want to try this? Try it. And I think his personality and his salesmanship and letting the customer try something, which was very rare in the 60s, is kind of how it started.
Yeah, because again, for us, it's common now. But back in those days, it was rare for, 18-year-old kid or 16-year-old kid to walk into a store and be handling a $3,000 Les Paul guitar. Um, so you think you attribute that to sort of his personality, um, or is there anything else that you think you could attribute that kind of openness and sort of
Absolutely.
his style of retail to?
Yeah, my father, for anyone who knew him, I mean, his personality was huge, but he was a really, really great guy at reading characters and people. And I think one of his strongest strengths was is realizing when he started and business taking off. He surrounded himself with young people his age, a little bit younger, but it's probably some of the best. Have become some of the best talents. I mean, one of our first employees was the late Don Banks, which you'll probably remember, Ray. And then Jeff Sazen, I think, was employee number 2 or number 3. And just over the years, you know, he just had a knack for finding talent, and that's I think seen by the fact that so many of people who started out working at Steve's end up becoming major figures within the industry, be it sales reps, owning companies, manufacturers. A lot of people trace their roots right back to us.
Yeah, me included. So, uh, try to remind us of peak Steve's. I think I was there at definitely maybe close to peak or maybe before peak, but we were there in the meaty days, and I remember a story where the Alesis HR-16, nobody had it. We had people lined up around the block to buy this stuff, and a competing store had them. Had a few, and I was working under Jeff. Jeff sent Parker over to buy all the stock, and then he resold it almost at no charge just to satisfy the customer. That was kind of the attitude. That was Steve's. And when we first started in software, the first company really embraced the young fledgling Stein Mechanical was Steve's. So tell me some of the what you remember. You were young. I remember you just very young at that time. What do you remember about the kind of like the peak years?
So again, like disturbing my big brother growing up in it. Um, I remember it was always a privilege to go down and be able to spend time and come down on a Saturday morning in the store, which was just I'll say chaos because as a young kid in the late '70s, early '80s, you know, customers all over the place uh, playing 10 people playing guitar, five people trying drums. Back in those days, we were the original five storefronts before we expanded that in Montreal. It was just energy. You can't really say it other than just saying that. Um, I mean, part of it, growing up, I think years going by, I went to see when the premiere of Wayne's World came out, and anyone's grown up and worked in a music store, and that famous scene with the white Strat and no stairway, which everyone jokes about. And I'm sitting there, I'm losing myself. I'm laughing so hard. I think Coca-Cola is coming out of my nose, and because I'm saying like, and people are like, "Oh, that's so fun." Why? But why is it so fun? I'm like, "Oh, that's us." Like that's what Saturday morning was at Steve's. That just you walked in and a million people playing Stairway until it was um, the staff in Toronto actually made and Montreal. We all kind of made a decision like Friday, Saturday. We had our band list that went on to Much Music, stuff like that, and just that kind of energy, like walking in and just people running around, playing everything, and I think that's a major influence on myself for love of music. Even though I myself I don't play, it's just I still love gear. I still sit down and even though I don't play guitar, I'll drool over some exotic wood or pickup or something. And I think it was the fact that so many people were coming and playing. People were just sitting there and talking. It was like I said, like it was growing. It was to me, it was my big brother's basement. So like was everyone was there and just chit chatting and um, influencing each other. Showing customers are showing each other how to play tunes or check this out. I just learned about this or something like that. So it was just that energy that I you don't see today. People don't interact anymore the same way as 80s, 90s, 2000s uh, peak, I guess, of us and I guess that generation.
Mm-hmm. And then you had a real tragic situation. Your father passed away. How old were you at that time?
I was 39 and my father was 64 at that point. So way too young. Um, for myself, I was at that point, I mean, obviously I was working full time. I was working side by side with my father. Uh, but um, my dad, Sheldon, Julio, like Dave, Jeff, they're all by that point Jeff had left us, but they're all my mentors growing up. And I wasn't ready to jump in and fill his shoes. And they're big shoes. I mean, he's a big man in both personality and stature, and it was a lot. It was emotional. You kind of it was a sudden death, so so you're I was thrown into a lot more than I was um oh not say ready for, but you're never ready. You always want your mentors to be there and to be your mentors forever. You kind of want them to kind of slowly transition away. But I learned a lot. I think a lot of people learned a lot from working with my dad and the management. And even today, though, I mean, I still talk to him at night. I
Mm-hmm.
still, you know, ask myself what would he do? Ask for advice all the time. So I think he's still part of me as he was. I think he's still part of everyone who's ever worked with him.
I know. I mean, I have a great Steve Kerman story. We were working in the Toronto office, a Toronto store, and he come to the office, and there was a fax machine that was giving trouble for a long time, and they couldn't get that little roly thing threaded. It always used to jam, and Steve got so mad he took the fax machine and just threw it on the ground and told Shelly go buy another fax machine and don't tolerate broken equipment. Like get rid of it. It's cheaper to buy a new one. And some of those ideas I take with me today. You know, don't suffer bad equipment. Get rid of it. Put another one in there. Um, and watching him do this, I was young as well, like kind of like you. Uh, he had no respect for the value of this fax machine because to him it was like a few $100s. Like get this thing out of here. I'm running a multi-million-dollar operation. How could this $400 piece of gear interrupt me? So I learned a lot from him and how to sell and how he was. I love that guy. I remember they gave him an award. I think it was 25 years, and it was at a MEAC show. I took a picture with him, and it's one of the a picture that was featured in a magazine because I had actually taken the best picture of him. No, he was actually a great man. But you said you weren't really ready. Um, what was it like with somebody with that big of a personality? Because Steve's was a big personality. When we worked in the store, Steve's coming. Everything had to be kind of put in its place correctly. As a son, what was it like working with somebody with that huge of a personality, Michael?
Um, well, first of all, I've worked with several people like that too, because not only my father had a great personality, my uncle too, and they're more multiple personalities, I think, in the sense that there's the business side, which was um, a very dominant personality, especially as a young person coming in and learning. Although as time moved on, we actually kind of got a very good working relationship, where quite often we'll have our sit down private meetings and um, he was a good listener. But once he, as you said, once he made a decision, that was it. But he took in everything, every which way, and um, just he was so fast on his feet. He understood things long before the room around him did, and he was great at working the room to help people come up and see the vision. Um, and it's I think I think, and I truly believe my father believed I was ready to jump into his seat. But as a child, you're always, or a younger generation coming in and taking over from the older generation, you're always a little apprehensive because there's decades of experience, even though you've yourself been working at those points for a decade or decades, that you just want to still absorb. And in the sense, like I would still today, I still talk to him in that sense that I still want his advice. I'm still seeking um, what knowledge my father or Sheldon or Julio, Donnie, all are some of the great people who worked for us in the past, because they shaped me to who I am. And we all kind of grew the business as the business growing as a family, because the business always ran as a family. So to me, it's the loss of the mentorship, the realization that I'm now the mentor to younger people, and sometimes you just it's hard to sit back and realize, like, when did this transition happen? And when my father passed away, it was mid transition, and all of a sudden, like, well, now all the eyes are focusing on me, and that's a lot to step into. Um, I mean, 14 years later, it's I'm still stepping into it in a sense, but I learned a lot, and a lot of knowledge to pass on too, I guess.
Okay, so let's talk about the business. When would you say you first noticed the kind of ground shifting in the retail scene? Like you could see, wow, things are really changing. When would you see you kind of got wind of or sort of caught that feeling that things were moving in some new directions?
I think that was I probably could think of a couple different dates. At first, I'll say 1995 as a 20 something year old coming in and um, talking to my dad and the senior people at the business at the time, saying there's this new thing called the internet, and try to explain what that was to them, and convincing them that allowed me in '96 to start a website. Um, of course, my vision and where the world is today are probably now colliding, but back then it was a lot to get people to understand what it was. Then jump forward to I guess late 2000s when unfortunately we are dealing with an expropriation and um, so then so we were looking at expansion and to settle uh, one, do we move the store? Do we expand to a couple of small stores? We kind of a hybrid thing with it. And then lately was to try to transition to the more modern version of the internet. It's the 1996 internet of like informational data page that can call us for information, stuff like that, to the post-COVID, uh, I guess, omni-channel shopping cart, social media, brick and mortar, all kind of mixed into each other. That was a major transition, which I think was probably we had the most difficulty with. Because once you get to a certain size and a certain number of people, it's harder to transition away from what you're doing to something completely new. And that was so one of my biggest challenges, I think.
Now, let's start with the first one. The first one you said was the early internet, which was information bank of web pages and actually Steve's had a pretty good website and you had pretty good social media. I mean, remember you had a lot of people on Facebook. So where do you think you that sort of didn't uh, blossom into sort of a stronger retail presence on the internet?
Uh, it's a lot of things. And I think some of it is, you know, culture within the business, culture with the fact that we felt that uh, musicians are still a community and people are going to want to try a guitar before they buy a guitar, and showrooming becoming a major issue down the road. Um, those are, yeah, a little bit of that, a little bit of, I guess, the younger generation, not the same mentality, I guess, as the older generation, a little bit of not um, being able to tap in properly or use the resources of some of the younger generation well enough. I mean, these are all 2020 hindsight
Mm-hmm.
reflections.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still reflecting a little bit on some of these answers. And
But
oh,
but going
that
back,
also, yeah.
but going back, if you look at say the early 2000s, um, the internet, it was starting to come on. I think by 2006, 2007. a lot of stuff was really being done on the internet. Um, some retailers are able to make the shift. So you think culture could have been a factor? What about infrastructure, like IT infrastructure? What role did that play, if any, in making that transition more or less seamless?
Yeah. Well, for us, IT infrastructure is actually a little bit probably one of the biggest challenges. Um, I mean, Ray could attest to, as being a former employee, our computer system, which dated from the 1980s, which was kind of mass major update for Y2K. Um, we're still on that. We were still on that system, so that was a little bit of a transition, an issue for us, um, as you know, it the computer system from 1980s, it wouldn't be like, for example, omni-channel where easily communicate with other platforms. So there's a lot of internal steps that have made that infrastructure difficult to maintain updates, websites, uh, forecasts, or whatever like that. So I spent the better part of the last 5 years researching and developing alternatives and updates. We had actually just launched our new iteration of our website, um, which was supposed to transition to the new POS system about a month and a half before we um, we decided to shut down the location. So it was always an evolving step, but a little bit slow.
Mm-hmm. And is it? I mean, it seems to be always the historical data. Um, the sort of the staff already has a kind of a system in place that works with this the disruptive nature of switching. Why do you think more and more companies don't or find it so difficult to sever some of these legacy systems? And to speak of it from your perspective, why do you think Steve's a system from 1980 found it so difficult? Was it the historical data? Was it the head office, the back office? They're used to certain things. Um, what do you? Why?
A little bit of everything. First of all, the software we have is not a canned box software. So everything we had was custom developed. It's still actually a live language, and believe it or not, still used within our industry. The language our system is written in. And so we were always, even though it was the same system, we were always constantly redeveloping and updating features. But once you get used to certain features, for example, and functions, you start looking for, of course, what's out there, what's available. There is no canned system that did exactly what you developed your way of working for the last 20, 30, 40 years. Um, or if the system existed, you kind of found the basic and then everything had to be customized again. Well, once you're already customized, why do you want to redevelop and
Mm-hmm.
go through the headaches of switching, getting to something, it's not working, your hands are tied to try to get back there, but you're now losing momentum of information. Um, the biggest constraint our system had was maybe talking to the internet. Um, but what we had internally, when I was looking out there, I couldn't find. I mean, like I said, it took me a better part of 5 years looking. Um, Something that would do what we needed, the information we had, and the way we worked, or the way we want to work. Um, that wouldn't be a 3 to 4 year development, and um, probably a fortune that it just wasn't attainable. Of course, as time goes on, some of these newer systems are coming out and are getting a lot better than what they were. As like I said, as was restructuring and shrinking the business, and since February, a lot more tools became available because Now we're not dealing with multi-location. Omni-channel becomes a little bit easier to deal with once you take out multiplication, multi-provinces, multi-languages. Historical data is easier to import and manipulate, but prior to that, it's not an easy find.
Hmm.
Um, you know, maybe our industry is very different than other industries. And certain things retail, it's retail. I mean, I think point of sale is easy enough. It's the back office is the hardest to find what you want.
The back office, the accounting department, accounting. You got to make them happy. If they're not happy, nobody's happy.
I think accounting is
True
probably
everywhere.
purchasing. Those are the guys you have to.
Purchasing too. Purchasing on top of accounting. Those two. Uh, all right. So now let's talk about 2020,
Yeah.
March, middle of March. We have this thing called COVID. How did that impact your store? Uh, before, during, after. What did COVID mean to Steve's business?
Well, COVID definitely was a major change. Um, I mean, retail all of a sudden stopped. Our head office being in Quebec and one of the strongest stores being in Montreal, um, we were a lot more restrictive than the rest of the country, probably the rest of the world. I mean, um, COVID came, retail got shut down. In-person shopping disappeared. All of a sudden, we're surviving strictly on um, web business. But COVID came, and all of a sudden, I have 150 people I have to lay off across the board because we weren't allowed to come shopping. You know, luckily there are great government programs coming for these people, um, but it taught the world. Even though people were buying up instruments on left, right, and center because they were stuck at home doing nothing, um, it taught the world how to, in a sense, shop a little bit online. The um, I don't want to say the Amazonization of people of expectations of I clicked on this, it's at my front door tomorrow morning. Which even today uh, giants like Amazon are trying to back away from that because it's unsustainable, unattainable to that level of um, deliveries. Returns without, questioning. I mean, these are all issues that the industry had to face. People buy a guitar, returning a month later, expect, free shipping both ways. There are expenses that were thrown onto companies which are struggling because we still had to maintain rent at 5 locations, even though we have no employees, no customers allowed to come shopping in the stores, and this lasted in Quebec. We reopened, we closed, we reopened a second time. Um, a good 6 months a year where people couldn't go face to face shopping. That changed consumer habits a little bit. I also feel a lot of um, people who picked up instruments during COVID decided once we could get out, dropped playing and flooded the market a little bit with the used instruments,
Mm-hmm.
um, which also, of course, affects us because every supplier and manufacturer, of course, wants to get the post-COVID numbers back. And the best way to do it is just to shove gear down every store or open up anyone and everyone while the market is being flooded with used equipment. So it was a little everything, but certainly the world had not was not the same after.
Now, Amazon, they they're obviously one of the biggest companies in the entire world. They're big in Canada. Um, can the traditional? I mean, I'm just giving you a chance to give your opinion.
Yeah.
Um, can the traditional brick and mortar industry coexist with a successful uh, dominant Amazon?
Yes, the biggest problem our industry has, and part of it's because of it started in the 2000s when the internet first exploded, and then post Amazon is map pricing. So um, and then this again, I'm strict in my opinion here. When a brick and mortar store like us, which has the expertise, both sales staff, support staff, the size of the store, and the variety of instruments to try, and focus to, people still come down, and we're showrooming, which is a term that's come out because of Amazon and Best
Mhm.
Buys, trying stuff, and then we'll go to buy it, to go home and make their decision. Problem is in store, where usually we have um, a service, and B, our in-store pricing is quite often lower than what will be observed on the web because of MAP, which is minimum advertised pricing, so, which was meant to combat companies like Best Buy, who are coming in big box stores and um, buying up market share because of their sheer size and putting all the small guys out of business. Is now done the opposite. The little guy who might only order on a catalog when he place an order with them is sitting in their garage, which have a very low overhead. Now to a big box, a brick and mortar store like ourselves, which had the variety and the service, has to compete. And we're all, you check on your phone, Amazon, the small little guy in his garage, and Steve's, we're all at the same price. And people will forget that an hour ago they were in the store. What was the price tag in the store that was less expensive with the extras of shopping brick and mortar? Now, this is not just a music industry issue. This is an issue, I think, across a lot of industries where there's service involved and testing products. Um, and I think the world is slowly going to transition back a little bit. I think the independent retailers are pushing back against manufacturers with MAP pricing because it kind of feels, even though it's decriminalized as price fixing, um, and they could try to get their message out. Hey, come shop to us. We give you better service. We give you better value and stuff like that. But it's still kind of transitioning, and unfortunately, we become a victim of it. But it is a leveling a little bit of the playing field, and it will it will balance out. Again, not just our industry. I think across multiple industries, but I think we're still a little bit away from that.
Mhm. Okay, now as you know, the manufacturers, the guitar manufacturers, for years they come to you and they say, "Here's a new version of XYZ guitar. Comes in 5 colors. Blah blah blah. Buy a whack of them and pay us in 30 days." But you sometimes have the previous model, a lot of it still in stock, um, and you haven't even sold through those. But there's a new version, um, and you just pile up this inventory. But then a few blocks from you, there's another dealer that's doing the same thing. It's piling up a bunch of inventory there, and then another one. And in Montreal, you might have 5 or 6 warehouses with a lot of the same stuff. Uh, and the idea is have it so that when somebody wants it, you could have it to sell them. This inventory model of just kind of piling up all this simultaneously, it's similar. Like you find the same. You go to 5 stores in Montreal in a warehouse, it's the same things. Um, is that sustainable long term? That you can have all this inventory, especially when the manufacturer's selling it directly, and Amazon's also selling it.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm saying that's where the part of the problem in the general industry is. I mean, we maintained a 25,000 square foot warehouse of backup stock for all our stores. And the advantage of coming to the stores, and I'll say this for most retailers, is again, you got to try it, feel it, see maybe something else that was similar that you weren't thinking of, and maybe even steer to that product, versus the online model, which everyone, the manufacturer is now selling at the same advertised price on the internet that we have to sell at, um, and Amazon and everyone else. But of course, the manufacturer, it tells us we have to keep this mixture of their products, relatively in stock, uh, force us, for example, to keep 300 guitars in our stock. And then the next guy has to have, he might be a smaller dealer, he might have to have his 150 guitars. Um, but we're all relatively, say, 85, 90% the same mix because that's what the market wants to see. And then, well, everyone has a little bit different taste, a little bit different market area. Like this style of music or this color might be more popular in this city versus that city. Um, but not everyone can have everything that everyone wants at the same time. And then you have the manufacturers who are um, selling direct to consumer, selling direct fulfillment for Amazon. So now their warehouses are open to everyone, but the independent dealer, we can't just go, order from them and have it shipped to the customer next day, but they can't fulfill that to for Amazon or themselves. So there is certainly that disadvantage to have to deal with. Um,
So, Michael, has anybody sort of thought of monetizing the showcasing, showrooming? Like, have the how about the vendors pay you guys to have the product available for people to try it?
I think there's a couple of major chains that have tried that in the States. Of course, and in Canada, there's a little bit where some of the manufacturers say, well, uh, we'll design a showroom within your showroom just to focus our products. They'll come in and they'll pay to fancy up the products. Of course, you have to buy the mix that they say they want to show and keep certain numbers. So there's a financial commitment on your side. Um, but the flexibility of saying, I want to try this other model, or what, brand X isn't selling as well as I thought it would, and brand Y needs a little more space. Well, now they've bought that space in your store, so you can't showcase the products that were maybe selling a little bit better than the other ones were, because manufacturers are starting to look at that, but that was kind of department store mentality. And of course, where are all the major department stores today? Um, they've also kind of disappeared in that sense. Um, and that's because a lot of it was the flexibility for a particular market was being hampered by them a bit. Um, and yes, manufacturers, obviously they're manufacturing, they're trying to say, well, we know what we want to push out to our customers or what our customers are demanding. Um, but they also have built-in cycles, and a lot of times their cycles are changing faster than the product has a chance to get to market and
Exactly.
get to market properly, um, or vice versa. They're reacting. Some products are dying off much faster than the manufacturers can react, and them coming in and telling us what to stock and how to stock it was kind of restrictive a little bit to um, adapt to the market a bit.
But the question really is, like how many guitars do you need to have in a store? Like, give me a guess. How many guitars did you have hanging up at Steve's Montreal?
Um, so say our downtown stores had about 2,500 guitars on the walls. Um, our smaller stores like the Dollard, Greenfield Park, and Ottawa had easily 1,200 to 1,500 guitars.
So in
And that
Montreal,
gives you a
yeah.
backup stock.
So in Montreal, you had about 5,000 guitars hanging on a wall. Is it
Uh,
okay? But Michael, isn't that too many guitars?
Sometimes I'll say yes, and then it's amazing to see how every guitar turns over a few times a year. So yes, it's hard because of that amount of real estate. But that's what made Steve's. The fact that we had you know this guitar in four of the five colors was available in stock. And all the sub models versus everyone's saying, oh, the smaller stores, okay, well, we got the black one. Um, so
It's always the one that you don't have that the
always.
customers want. Always. But still, um, there's another store like Steve's has competitors. I'm just talking about one city. You have competitors in Montreal that also have thousands of guitars hanging. So inside of Montreal, just the city of Montreal, you have, I don't know, 10,000 guitars hanging on walls. Isn't that too much? Aren't there too many products?
There might be a little bit, there's a million, there's of course our major brands, and there's a lot of sub brands, especially available online, that's all over the place. I mean, a guitar player doesn't, there's always different levels. You have your beginners just trying out, but professional guitar players seems to, we have a collection of 10 to 15 guitars because not every guitar is the same. You might want this sound. That's what one guitar gives you, where the next sound for whatever project you're working on or relaxing to, or whatever your motivation is. Um, you have your acoustic, your electric, your probably two or three different body shapes that give you different tonal sounds, bassier or more higher end, um, and the sound and electric guitar. The single coil humbuckers. Everything has a personality, and it's the personality that you're trying to come across. So that's the problem. There's 10,000 guitars, let's say, in the city, but um, there's 9,000 different personalities of those 10,000 guitars. And what you feel like doing today may not be what you feel like tomorrow, and you're looking for that sound.
Mm-hmm. So this industry intrinsically is difficult to service with a an inventory stocking model because I'll just give you a comparison. The cell phone business in Montreal is bigger than the guitar business, right? But there are not 10,000 different cell phones. How many different cell phones are able to satisfy the population of Montreal?
Well,
I don't
there's
think there's more than 20.
no, there's still quite a few, and you know what, the accessory business in cell phones is um, probably very similar to the guitar accessory. Like, everyone say a million iPhones, but everyone's got their case or two cases or um, you know their dangler that they have on their phone or whatever. It just you know today I want to have this, my blue case, or tomorrow I'm gonna have my red case that matches
Right.
what I'm wearing, or my feelings today. So
But they're
yeah,
not 1,000 different cell phone models available to the people that live in Montreal or
no,
anywhere else.
there's tens of thousands of accessories for it,
But
and
there's the phone itself is how many different phones. So anyway, this is a problem that I think is a math problem. Now
yeah,
let's talk about software. So as you know, I worked at Steve's. When I worked there, Steve's was a hotbed of tech. When we first started Steinberg Can in 1991, Steve's our best customer. Um, you were number one in Canada in the music technology space. You were top consumer of our early business. It was small, but you were number one and number one for many years. Um, why do you think Steve's was not able to go on to dominate the kind of digital download software business, which is quite significant now?
um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's the focus, if it's the people themselves. I mean, that's the million dollar question. Because if obviously if had the right answer to that one, the company wouldn't have gone to restructure or something like that. But I think it's A little bit of everything. I think a lot more players came into it, a lot more options. So, like when you start off with Steinberg, for example, there was maybe two or three software companies out there. Now there's tens of thousands. Software that's $20 versus $10,000, and they're all competing for that same kind of space. Um, and just like you're saying with the guitars, it might just become too confusing, too difficult to know all the systems. And I think the fact that we carried a good chunk of them, maybe that could have been too much. Maybe to focus on one genre, or maybe the fact that we had all the options. We give us the expertise, and of course, all those guys, staff that you take time nurturing to become the experts and proper salesmen. Once they get to a certain level, they get poached. you know,
Hmm.
and to hire up at different positions, here be sales reps, working in studios. It all kind of you know, I guess brain drain. Like you're a great school for in a sense for people to learn the industry, and then they will move on. And takes time to find the right person to step into what you took time to train someone to do.
Right, right. Now let's talk the other business, which is, real estate, big cities.
Yeah.
As you had mentioned, I prepared a little bit for this story. I saw some of the quotes that you made. When you moved to St. Catherine on the east side, um, for some of these locations, in the 80s and the 90s, there was a ton of foot traffic. I remember 415 Queen Street West. It's got to be one of the best promenades in the entire city of Toronto, and Steve's right in the middle of it. And there's tons of traffic, just people walking, cars. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And what we've seen, recently is it's harder and harder to just get into these cities, into the downtown cores. And a lot of people just don't want to go down there. Parking is a nightmare. And then the cost of being down there, the rents, they're not anywhere what they were relative to your turnover, say in the 90s or early 2000s. How do you square that kind of circle of dealing with real estate, leases, and margins that are shrinking because of this sort of myriad of competitors? Uh, how speak to our people that are watching now? I mean, from your vantage point, how do you make that work in 2026?
That is the a big question, actually. You know, when we were expropriated, I mean, we had an advantage for Toronto and Montreal being owner landlords of our space. And then when Montreal store was expropriated and we moved to on St. Catherine Street, for example, which is right in the heart of the like Toronto Entertainment District, and we're 2 blocks from three major venues. All the festivals are down the street. Universities are a couple blocks in the other direction. It's a major foot traffic street, but it's an expensive street. And then you start getting into the cities closing down streets for festivals or bike paths or potholes and construction and stuff like that. And it became difficult for customers to come down to the store. But when you're looking at the stores, like, also, you're negotiating a lease, you're negotiating like a minimum 5 year lease, probably a 10 year, because a year to year, a year goes by very fast. You get in there, you start to get established, you're already starting to renegotiate your lease, or otherwise you have to start looking to move. So you settle into a 5 year lease, trying to hopefully fix your costs, but you're also predicting the future, and you're predicting that well, the construction, that's a short term thing. Like they're going to fix the potholes. There's going to be parking spots will come available once this new high rise down the street gets built. Um, Unfortunately, the history has shown in at least some of our cases, it hasn't. It's hard to predict. Um, not to say don't take a chance, but um, also in our case, their downtown stores are bigger stores, um, where the real estate's the most expensive. Um, that might start changing more to towards suburb stores. Although where real estate was cheaper, we've also seen those stores have also had their issues. Um, it's getting into, I guess, the retail, I guess, brick and mortar. Um, Today, you have to mix a lot more online with it, I think, and be able to supplement the downtime when there is low foot traffic with getting a newer traffic in by um, going to the omnichannels, getting the social medias and the onlines and other marketplaces that you could try get business into.
Hmm.
Because to focus on just one brick and mortar, it's not. Unfortunately, in today's world, it's not a successful model.
Why would Steve's not do lessons? Why didn't you do go hardcore into lessons and things like that?
No, it's something we never did. It's not something Steve was interested in. Um, we were, I mean, we did rentals. We did a lot of school board rentals. There's a lot of independent teachers out there who give lessons, and I think we felt we'd rather support the community and let the community support itself, so that let the community grow. So, like, let the guy who bought guitar, well, our staff might have given lessons after hours, and they might have had friends to recommend and stuff like that. And it was kind of like everyone's second job giving lessons. Um, there's also some great independent schools that we were uh, teamed with that we would recommend to customers, and they would recommend us to go shopping with. So we never felt the need, especially at a downtown location, to rent at the absorbent downtown real estate prices, to have lessons.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm. Now we have some people on this call who are running retail stores, um, and you come from a 62-year um, sort of history of music retail. Let's just say, give me three things, three pieces of advice you would give to everybody that's on this call right now that's running a retail store and facing a lot of what you're facing. What would your advice be?
um, Persistent pace. Don't sit back and just feel, hey, things are going to happen. Um, Definitely take advantage of downtime, because retail, it's not, we're open 10 to 6 or 9 to 5 or a 9 to 9, whatever our hours might be, but there's always going to be downtime, and utilize your staff, um, their expertise, their generational. Yes, you might have Gen Xers, you might have Gen Zs or Gen Ys, or use their advantage and take advantage of other markets. Uh, you could prep, post for Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform you're working with on off time. One of the biggest problems I saw my staff say, thought you had to do something, it had to be posted immediately. But take advantage of that off time and plan it. Like, don't just say, hey, I'm going to post this product because it just came out in the store, but plan to post that product with a little blog, a little post, advertising revenue. So it's getting you more than just that. But besides just posting times, there's I think with whatever platform you're working with, to make sure that you have proper omni-channel integration, so that the platform itself, especially with the growth of AI, let it help you advertise to your customers, so that it'll show the right product, or based on what their browser history will be, for example, so that the key product would come to them um, more more easily. Um, it's along those lines. But it's an investment.
Hmm.
It's you can't just sit back. You have to let it. You have to work at it all time.
Hmm. And your dad. Yeah, I worked with him. Um, you and him probably have different styles. Uh, what do you think he would do faced with this same set of problems? If you were to
Um,
guess, because you can only guess.
I can only guess. Um, I think similarly. We probably would have thought a lot of things along the same way, but maybe his execution would have been different. Like I said earlier, he had a great talent of um, finding talent.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow he just, you know, talent would just flow to him, and he could find what someone's really good at and nurture it out of them. Um, and I think he probably would also similar like try to what I couldn't do is get out of the office and get more in um, into the brick and mortar and dealing, which he loved to do, which he hated the working in the office. It was working with the customer and being in person. It's something I think part of his advice I will wish I could have done more of, but unfortunately I got stuck. Managing a lot behind the scenes, and I think he would have been a little bit more upfront than I would or was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you were to, wave a magic wand and sort of create a perfect future for Steve's, what would you imagine, and what would you create?
Um, I'm still imagining it. There's still, you know, it's still too fresh for me to have a proper response or perspective, but there's certainly a lot of thoughts going on. Um, and I think I like take the time properly to evaluate it and look and have discussions with the people I like to have discussions with on that sort of stuff because I don't want to give away the secret sauce if if we're able to do something with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, man, thank you so much for this. I'm going to open it up to take some questions. If people have, we ask you to post your questions um, in the chat. And for me, this was a it's a very personal interview. I, like you, feel like there's something I lost, a little brother, Steve's Music Store, Cosmo. These are places that I work that are very dear to me, and I really appreciate you coming up here and spending your time today. And I know you had some other things you got to do. I got a question here already. If you had to do it all over, would you still go with multiple locations or just go all in on one location?
Actually, it's one of the thoughts I'm contemplating right now, and I think if I were to do it all over again, I would definitely start off with just one and go all in and see how it grows. You don't like the business was my big brother growing up. I think it's like starting a new family. You try to start with one kid before you have a big family, and I listen. I love to say yes. I would love to go all in and fix what I think could be fixed differently, or try something differently. But definitely, I'll start off with one location and um, let it grow from there, and let's see what happens naturally. I mean, today with the internet and once good location, you could probably do just as well as a decade or two ago with multiple locations.
Another question. Did any brands offer any sort of conciliation or maybe extended favorable terms while you're in this sort of restructuring mode?
Um, the straight answer, easy answer would be no. I think, but that's not a fair answer because there are certain manufacturers that have been, they have their own risks they have to account for, and there are some who have been much easier to work with and grow and try to regrow and do than others. Um, but everyone, of course, is doing risk mitigation. But there definitely were others who were some that were um, very easy. It was like, okay, we'll just start on our page. Maybe buying on terms might have disappeared, or some of the better price points or something like that as a large volume dealer disappeared. But we're still willing to work and um, help you um, yeah, move forward. There are others who just close the door and well,
That's
we'll
it.
we'll just figure it out.
That's it. All right, here's another question. With Steve's brand being synonymous with Canadian music retail, do you see an opportunity to make software a much larger part of the business moving forward? It seems like many Canadians buy software out of the Canadian market.
Absolutely. And not to pat Ray on the back because we're talking here. He's done incredible thing with Exchange. And there's definitely we could do a lot more with a platform like what we're doing here, um, and supporting both Canadian software and growing a software business. So yes, absolutely. Again, working with Ray over all these years and my staff, his team's always been great. Ray in the background, helping out, um, and there's definitely good growth in software. The biggest competitor to software, honestly, is the app market, which is just giving a little bit of disservice to what we really have available to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question. Can the industry associations like NAM do more to help businesses in the music retail space? And if so, what?
Yes, unfortunately, Canada used to have something like NAM called MIAC, which we unfortunately haven't really had for almost 2 decades now. So as much as NAM is doing, it's doing primarily for the US market, and whatever trickles down kind of helps the Canadian market. Now, Canada, of course, is very tied in to our southern neighbor, uh, but not every initiative in NAM does, because NAM is focused primarily on the US market, does translate internationally. You say the same thing about MESA, but that's kind of covers the European market. So Canada is kind of stuck in a place where we have industry associations that do help, but more on a global scale, and nothing really focusing on Canada anymore. And we're small, unfortunately. We're a big country, but in a sense, a small market with some very distinct sub-markets, both being language and demographics, East Coast, West Coast, music tastes and stuff like that. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to have a strong um, NAM type thing in Canada as well.
Okay. Another question. In your opinion, how will it be in the music business 5 years from now? Is it shrinking or will it grow? How do you see it?
I like to say it's going to grow. I hope. Music goes in waves. A decade ago, we were saying electric guitar, and the guitar was dead. It came back. It's kind of flattish, but there's still innovation coming. Um, I think the industry itself has to, you know, work on maybe getting new customers, finding ways to tell people it's better than as a hobby beginner starting off. What NAM has done great jobs with music makes you smarter. Um, Initiative to try to get that message out. Um, the cell phone market and the um, PlayStation, Xbox market type thing to get kids off of consoles and back into music. That's a music back in school. All those will definitely help our industry grow.
Mhm.
I don't see our industry. Yeah, I see it shrinking a little bit, but I don't see it disappearing. I see that there's going to be another wave. I think we're going to see some influencers coming out that are going to make people want to play again. I really feel that's our industry is too important. It's relaxation. It's expression. There's just too much in the music industry for it to disappear. Let's hope it stays creative.
Okay. This is not so much a question. This is a kind of a comment from Randy, but I think I should read it for you. Not a question, more of a thank you. I grew up shopping in Montreal with Sheldon and Dave, and from my point of view, your people and the relationships they fostered were what kept us coming back. A huge part of my life, and I missed them dearly, and we missed the store. Find a way to transfer that experience to online, and we can experience what Steve's meant. Uh, a lot of people out there, Mike, you and your dad and that lineage, you've touched a lot of lives. Look, there's somebody on this call who they started up in Montreal. How does that make you feel?
Um, I honestly have to say it's probably the highlight of my day every day or any day. Um, when I hear stories like that. This to feel the how we influenced people, how we influenced generations. Um, it means a lot. Like I said, to me, it's like the business was my big brother's basement. You went down there and you kind of hung out with all their friends and solid influences that they were having and how they influenced your life. And um, the true word community, and that's that means a ton to me because no matter where you are, the business might not be there today. Maybe it'll be back tomorrow. We don't know, but I think the community is always there. I think there's not day I go by. I heard I got my first guitar or um, I was playing a gig and this broke and I saw Sheldon or I saw Eve at the store and they took care of us and um, it's knowing that what you guys do to help and influence other people. It, it's hard to really say the words. It's just thank you. Everyone's just um, I love to hear it. It's like hearing about a long lost cousin that had some great success, and you just want to hear every story.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Really do want to hear.
There are a couple more, actually from SMM in Germany. Again, another comment. Not a question, but maybe an interesting information. We do see the same here in Germany. When I started with SMM, the dog business in 1991, we had 5 music stores in Munich. Today, we just left. We are doing the same, mostly direct with our studios and little no online business. So you could see that this SMM is still going strong, but they're doing a lot more direct business. A lot of it from their studio. Um, just people giving their 2 cents to Michael Kirman.
Thank you. And yeah, I see it globally. It's unfortunate, but I think we're just what's there in the community, though it's growing stronger, I hope. I think people are talking to each other and encouraging everyone. And that's, I think, the important part to take, though.
Absolutely. It's a community. One last one here. This is a question from Gav. Do you think the learning curve of playing an instrument is part of the challenge in this era of immediacy for the younger generation? You kind of touched on that a little bit earlier.
Uh, yes and no. I think it's not the learning curve as much as the focus. Kids today are been trained. First used to be 5 minutes of focus to um, a minute of focus to today. It's all we have our 15-second clips on our TikToks level of focus for the kids. But I have teenagers myself, and I saw my son pick up the guitar about 2 years ago, and um, you know, today he probably was my perfect demographic. He just flourished, and it actually saw something in him that once he started talking again to community and learning how do I do this, how do I do that. A lot of kids they learn on the recorder in school. Ukulele is a great stepping stone instrument into our industry. Um, but I think I heard a great stat from Fender. Like, you know, we get 20 kids today starting guitar. We know one is going to become a musician for life. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we get that one to become two and double our industry overnight? Um, so yes, we have to find ways to encourage maybe different ways of teaching and learning and or stepping stone instruments. But there's tons of people who are hopefully going to be encouraged and want to pick up, and it's just sometimes meant just finding the person, the right teacher, the right mentor, the right person, um, I guess, influence to you. And that's where I think we have to find, because it can't be the rigid, this is a school and you have to play and learn this skill, because that learning this skill this way might not be for everyone. So it's a little bit of all that, I guess. And my son, he picks up a lot of learn how to play, believe it or not, from TikToks and apps and talking to people to learn different styles or how do I do this or that. So it's there, but the commitment it's hard to find the commitment, getting the person steered to the right area.
Well, Michael, man, I'm going to let you go. I thank you so much for your time. I thank you and your dad for everything you guys did for me when I was coming up. I love the store. I love the industry, and we're hoping that you could, reconvene at a future date, bigger and stronger. And say hello to Bill, your uncle, for me. I got next time I'm in Montreal, I'm gonna look him up. And again, like I said, thank you so much. Good luck with everything. I wish you all the best, sincerely. And our entire team here at Exchange is we're kind of rooting for you. So have a nice day, sir, and thank you again very, very much. And thank
Thank
you
you,
everybody
Nate.
for tuning in.
And thank you to everyone also.
Thank you, Michael.